See, every week I come on here, right? And I tell y'all that NXT is the best wrestling show of the week. Every week. I've said this pretty much even a loose, somewhat slow episode of NXT is better than Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, and Collision. This week, I don't see anything anybody can do that is going to surpass the chicanery we got on NXT. May the 28th, 2024. A regular episode of NXT featured 2 huge surprises and a special guest, and still put on a pretty damn good show even without that stuff. So we got to get into it. Sexy Red, Ethan Page, Jordynne Grace, and we're still continuing storylines. They're rebuilding NXT slowly but surely. So we're going to get into it. First, let's talk about Julia. So apparently Julia ended up injuring her wrist. She is still wrestling in Japan. She will be coming over to NXT at some point in the summer. She just had surgery, or she will be having it, one or the other. And a lot of people thought she was going to be the surprise opponent for Roxanne Perez when it comes to Battleground. That's what a lot of people thought. Then there was this conversation about Roxanne Perez working stiffer at house shows in preparation because, the dirt sheets have to tie everything together. It turns out that Roxanne Perez just kind of works stiff. But Julia will, who knows if she's actually going to make that July date for Heat Wave. We'll see. At least I think that's what it's called. That's what she was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Heat Wave. So there's that. Well, with Jordynne Grace making an appearance on NXT, and she will be wrestling on NXT next week. We'll talk about that in a second. Trey Miguel of the Rascals wants to team up with Wes Lee one more time, even for a one-night reunion of the Rascals. And he pitched it on Twitter. And you know what? I'm in full support of it. I like the Rascals as a group. It's a 4-man team now. You don't see Myron Reed a lot on TNA. I don't know why. Like, what is it with everybody not really appreciating Myron Reed? But Myron Reed, Zachary Wentz, Trey Miguel, Wes Lee, those guys are tremendous. I wish they were treated better in TNA, but I'm 100% down with Trey Miguel and Wes Lee teaming up for one night, or even a 8-man tag that features all 4 members of the Rascals. I think that would be cool. And if they're going to be doing more NXT, TNA crossovers, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? I think there's a huge opportunity there to do more fun stuff, And I think that that at least is a good idea. All right, so let's get into the show proper. Sexy Red opens the show. She's going to be the host of NXT Battleground. She also revealed the Women's North American title, and Tatum Paxley tried to steal it from her, and they had a little bit of a tug of war before Mia Yim attacked Tatum Paxley to begin their North American qualifying match. Jada Parker came down to ringside. She was doing commentary. She called Vic Joseph a snitch. I'm not even sure why he's a snitch, but if she said it, I believe it. Miss Parker cannot tell a lie. Not as fine as she is. She too fine to lie. I believe fine women every day. Ugly bitches, they can't tell the truth. That ugliness they wear on their face, it comes from the lies that come out of their mouth. So, that's just kind of how I've been living my life the last 40 years or so. I wasn't really interested in this because I don't like Mia Yim. Not really a big fan. But she wins with Eat Defeat, which is Gail Kim's finisher. So Mia Yim is in the ladder match. The final qualifying match for the final spot, it was Ren Sinclair, and she got defeated by Kalani Jordan, who won with the split leg moonsault. There was a spot in this match where they couldn't get that bridge. You do it's hard to explain because you have to visually see it. But when they try to bridge up after, they tussle a little bit, they couldn't quite get it. They couldn't quite get it up. So, but other than that, the match was what it was. Ren Sinclair still in her jobber mode. She's still paying her dues, even though she has probably a lot more experience than Kalani Jordan does. She actually has a decent theme song, too. It's not terrible. All these NXT things are kind of whack, but, you know, it's okay. All right. So the women's ladder match is complete. The competitors are Sol Ruka, Lash Legend, Fallon Henley, Jada Parker, Michin, and Kalani Jordan. Of this group, I still feel like you should probably put the belt on Jada Parker, but I think that it's fairly obvious. They're probably going to go with Sol Ruka. I think putting it on a babyface first when you have a heel top champion is probably the best move, because you want to, I guess you kind of want to keep the balance on the roster with one babyface and one heel. And I think Sol Ruka would probably be a very strong babyface to be the North American champion. I wouldn't be mad if it was Lash Legend. I would be extremely excited if it was Jada Parker, but I don't think they'll do it so early for Jada Parker. If it was Triple H, it'd probably just go on Michin because she has more experience, or she's an indie darling. But that's why I'm so glad that fool is not messing around in NXT. So that's the women's ladder match. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. Joe Coffey and Mark Coffey were confronted by the metaphor. They thought that they jumped, well, they being the metaphor, pronouns, pal, believed that Gallus is the ones who jumped Noam Dar. Gallus says, well, they pretty much admitted when they jumped everybody else. Why wouldn't they admit to jumping Noam Dar too? So that left the metaphor looking kind of stupid. So Oro Mensah went back to blaming Trick Williams, and Lash Legend went back to defending Trick Williams. Later, Oro Mensah got beat up, and they're in the hospital room, Chikara and Lash, and Chikara's like, look, it's got to be Trick. It can't be anybody else. And then Lash Legend says, well, let me talk to Trick. He'll tell me the truth if he attacked Oro and Noam. And she's going to wait for the main event, or is over, to talk to him. Meanwhile, Javon Evans and Trick Williams are backstage. At Javon Evans, he's so excited. He's such an exciting kid. You know, he's very skinny. Like, we looked at the physical build between him and Trick Williams. I think there's like 5 or 6 years between the two of them. But Trick looks like a fully grown man, while Javon Evans looks like a high school kid. You know, just visually with his physique. Sexy Red comes in there, female Gucci Man. And they talk it out. They give each other high fives. She's twerking and all this kind of stuff. And Javon Evans asks her to walk them to the ring. So she does so. And that leads to Booker T absolutely losing his mind. He loses his mind every time Sexy Red was on television. Oh, yeah, man. I know Charmel is sitting at home like, what is this, man? She's probably tapping her foot. Just like, what is this man doing? I mean, she got a gigantic tattoo on the side of her face. I don't know if that's real or not, but I remember when Gucci Man got it, I was like, these people they're clearly MDD. I'm not going to go into too much about what that means, but clearly you're DD. If you have a gigantic tattoo on your face, I don't trust people with tattoos on their face. All right. I just think that you decided to live a life of debauchery at that point. In any event, the main event, Trick Williams and Javon Evans, they defeat Gallus via Sexy Red stopping Joe Coffey from cheating. She basically did, belt tug of wars all night. Javon Evans took out Joe Coffey by flipping over the top rope, and Trick Williams ended up pinning Mark Coffey. Really high energy tag team of Javon Evans and Trick Williams. And I really like what they're doing with Javon, where they're not overexposing him, but they're elevating him. He's clearly just Trick Williams' little buddy at this point, but they really want him to develop quickly. They want to try to make something of him right now, but this is without having him chase championships and stuff like that. He's just in the mix with Trick. And it builds up for something later between the two of them, when Javon is probably a little bit more, mature as a talent, where they might be able to do some stuff like in like a year or so, or maybe some 6 or 8 months. So I like this. Gallus already losing. I mean, it's Gallus. I mean, what do you expect? Did you expect them to be booked strong forever? No, they're Bigfoot European guys. It's not going much further than where they are right now. I just don't see that being the case. Anyway, after the match ended, Lash Legend came to the ring. She gave a high five to Sexy Red, and Javon Evans took his leave. Sexy Red left too. Then Lash Legend, she confronted and she questioned Trick Williams, asking him if he attacked Noam Dar, if he attacked Oro Mensah. And before he could respond, the lights went out. When the lights came back on, Trick Williams is obliterated from behind. Pause. Knocked Lash Legend down too. And then some generic figure is just punching him in the head 150,000 times. When he gets up, we finally see that it's Ethan Page. And the crowd is chanting, Ethan Page, Ethan Page. And he looks at the crowd and says, whoop that Trick, I'm about to. And he kicks Trick Williams in the face, lifts the NXT championship in the air. You know what? So Ethan Page is now hired in NXT. I like it. Ethan Page is a guy, he can at least talk. All right. That's a skill that he's very generic looking guy, but at least he can talk. That was his one positive when he was in TNA, is that he was willing to push the boundaries with the Karate Man stuff. I know that pissed everybody off, but at least he was willing to try to do something different, and at least he could talk. He was, I don't want to say the Shawn Michaels of that tag team with Josh Alexander, because it was one of those rare situations where both guys were the Jannetty. But at least Ethan Page could talk. At least he has some charisma. He has some verbal talent. So I'm okay with Ethan Page being brought into WWE. Again, he has some verbal skills. The issue I'm going to have here is he's just a generic sized guy, and there's nothing about him that stands out outside of his ability to talk. So if he has a compelling character or gimmick, it could be very fun with Ethan Page being on your roster. He's very animated, so that's a positive, but he's also Canadian, which is a negative. But I'm willing to give him a chance. I gave him a chance in AEW. As a matter of fact, Vic Joseph almost mentioned AEW. He's like, hey, that's Ethan Page. Wasn't he on AE? And then, but he didn't really get much to do in AEW. I know he had that one big match with Kenny Omega, and that was pretty much his entire run. He didn't really do much else there. He basically came and went. So that's the nature of the beast when it comes to AEW. Is, the roster is clogged, and everybody thinks that every other guy is the greatest wrestler in the world. And when you're kind of a generic guy like Ethan Page, you kind of fall by the wayside. But I think in a traditional WWE, a Vince McMahon led WWE that would force him to find a character, he would have been fine. It might have been a really strong mid-card talent. Under Triple H, WWE, with his verbal skills, that'll help. With his lack of, really strong character work, I don't know where there is no ceiling for him at that point, because Triple H loves guys who have no personality. He loves them for some reason. So Ethan Page is going to be good. He's a great fit for NXT because he has experience, but he's not overexposed. So he's not like a superstar that you need to bring on television immediately and put him in a super top spot. You can bring him in, slot him highly on the roster. You can have Trick Williams beat him, and it won't kill him. And he can build himself back up because he can talk. So he's not a guy that you need to bring in at the very top of SmackDown or something like that. NXT is a great spot for him. And a top spot in NXT is a good spot for him, given his experience. He's got more experience than pretty much everybody else on the men's side of the roster. He's a good fill-in for Ilya Dragunov, who took off, and Carmelo Hayes, who took off. So You still need more pieces because, you know, it's not like Ethan Page is like a 5-tool player who can do everything. Again, he's basically generic. But I see that they're trying to do something with somebody else, and we'll talk about a little bit later, where they're going to try to elevate him too, even though it doesn't look like it right now. So Ethan Page is a good signing. If they're going to bring him in, keep him in NXT for a little while, I like it. Should be a good plan. I would not have him win the title because Trick just won it. But maybe later this year, it wouldn't be a problem for him to be NXT champion for a little while. All right, let's get back into the show. Riley Osborne is defeated by Ridge Holland. Ridge Holland was about to hit Riley Osborne with the stairs, but Thea Hale talked him out of it. Well, she shamed him. And he didn't do it. Ridge Holland ends up winning with his package DDT. I don't know what the hell that was. For me, this match was entirely too long. I just felt like it ate up too much time. Later, Riley Osborne refused to shake Ridge Holland's hand, and backstage, he continued to say that Ridge Holland can't be trusted. This time, Duke Hudson is actually on his side and says that, well, they need to go think about whether they can trust Ridge Holland or not, even though Andre Chase wants them to trust Ridge Holland. And he's like, no, we won't. Thea Hale is upset. She's got a match next week against Jasmine Nick. She got to go prepare for it. And so they all go in their different directions, and Andre Chase is standing there looking kind of goofy. When Ridge Holland shows up, thanking him for the opportunity and saying, oh, yeah, we're doing everything one day at a time. So it seems like they're going to try to do a split of Chase University. Like, I think they've done that before. But they've teased Duke Hudson going his own way when it comes to Chase U before. And it didn't take, you know. So Riley Osborne, I think he's too small to be a heel. I also don't think he has a strong enough personality. So my guess is that they're going to end up being right, and Ridge Holland's going to blow his top and actually go out there and hurt somebody, because he works as effectively as a heel because he's big and muscular. So that you could do something with Ridge Holland as a heel. But Riley Osborne, I don't see it. He doesn't have much personality, not really that great at talking, more of a high-flying guy. He works as a babyface. So we'll see how that works out. All right, so Ariana Grace, she goes backstage while Lola Vice is working out, and she decides to say that Shayna Baszler is too dangerous for an NXT Underground match. And she doesn't think that it's smart for Lola Vice to get involved in that kind of contest. And Lola Vice says, well, I'll show you how dangerous I can be. And they decide to have a match later. And Ariana Grace was like, oh, shit. She talked herself into an ass whooping. It didn't last long either. Lola Vice defeated Ariana Grace. The match was about 3 minutes, maybe 4. Ariana Grace is perfectly fine losing quickly. It doesn't matter. She's a personality and a character. It doesn't mean anything that she loses. I would love for her to be elevated to a higher position, but she's found her niche. She has a character. She has a personality. She can bounce back from stuff like this. She can make excuses, all this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. Lola Vice wins the match, says that Shayna Baszler only has 2 choices, to get knocked out or get tapped out. Baszler charges the ring and getting held back by officials and referees. She starts yelling at Lola Vice that you think you're a badass because you are in NXT Underground? I was born in the Underground. And she's just yelling without a mic, which is probably the best Shayna Baszler promo in a long time. So I like this. It was a weird finish. I think it was like a spinning back fist or a spinning back elbow or something like that Lola Vice won with. So it's clearly they're trying to establish her with like a knockout strike, because they're not going to have her tap Shayna Baszler out. So she's probably going to knock out Shayna Baszler with some kind of strike attack, which is fine. But they're starting to tell that story. They probably should have started it before. But this is fine. It's going to work out okay. It's just killing me that Shayna Baszler is a heel on Raw and she's a babyface on SmackDown NXT. It's very weird. I mean, we get some consistency here? Like, she's in the League of Extraordinary Lesbians on Monday Night Raw, and here she's a MMA badass. It's like, can we get some consistency? I don't know. I like Shayna Baszler in NXT. I don't like Shayna Baszler on Monday Night Raw. I don't understand. You know, I don't get it. Maybe it's the presentation. You know, the Good Brothers. Oh boy, they're backstage. They're tired of the tag team champions running from them. And they want a shot. And they started beating. The beatdowns will continue until they get their shot. So they have a match against Idris Enofe and Malik Blade. Idris Enofe's story is that he's got bad luck. He got knocked off the ring apron and knocked down Brinley Reese. So she got bad luck for being in close proximity to these guys. And despite the fact that she's basically Thea Hale grown-up version, you know, after she takes one of the Mario mushrooms, she got carried off or, you know, helped away. And of course, Idris Enofe and Malik Blade lose to the Good Brothers. It doesn't matter. I like Idris Enofe and Malik Blade, but they're jabronis. There's just no point continuing to have any faith for these guys. After the match, Axiom and Nathan Fraser attacked the Good Brothers and accepted their challenge for the tag team titles. Okay. I'm not a big fan of this Axiom and Nathan Fraser thing. I think Axiom is a dead gimmick. They need to get rid of it. It seemed like last week they were leaning towards maybe getting rid of Axiom and bringing A-Kid back, as they talked about, like, who's A-Kid? I mean, I've never seen that guy before. Whatever happened to that guy? But, nothing came of it. So now he's still in this tag team. Nathan Fraser probably is underperforming, I think. He got brought in with a lot of hype when he came to NXT. And it was like 2 or 3 years ago. And then he got shipped over to NXT UK, and there was some hype for him over there too. And then he got some hype when he came back. This whole thing about him being trained by Seth Rollins and all this, it just felt like it was natural that he was going to be a part of something major. But it seemed like he had an underdeveloped personality, and that kind of cost him. And it's still costing him because they're not sure what he can do verbally. Like, everybody can see that he can do the moves and that he's fast and he's got, you know, high flying skills, but can he talk? And that's basically what his NXT run has been about, is him talking. And A-Kid is just a goddamn mini. He's a very small man, small foot, European guy, basically. As A-Kid, he was as generic as they come. But this Axiom thing is not working. I'm not sure what more you can do, but Axiom, I don't like it. It sucks. Dante Chen. They had a Dante Chen vignette where he said he sat by for 2 years watching other people get opportunities, but he was never jealous. He was never bitter. He just told himself to stay ready and for an opportunity to represent his family as the first, what is it, Filipino? No, not Filipino. He's the first Singaporean WWE superstar. And people watched him grind week in and week out on Level Up for this. And he's hungry. And now he just wants more opportunities. So him and his friends were watching his vignettes on the television when Lexis King showed up, called the match a fluke that he won last week, and demanded a rematch tonight, which Dante Chen accepted. This is where I looked at Dante Chen's physiognomy, his face, and I noticed that his chin was like pushed in, he had like a weird face, you know, and like he just doesn't have a strong jaw. I don't know what's up with this. I don't know what's up with Dante Chen. So they had the match, Lexis King versus Dante Chen. Dante Chen won the match again fairly quickly with a crucifix after Lexis King got frustrated. After the match, Lexis King kicked the shit out of Dante Chen. So he gets so out of control that he pulls up the mats on the floor to hit the coronation on the mat on the floor, because it was supposed to be on the floor, but he was being safe and dropped them on the mat instead. So Lexis King killed his own gimmick. But the visual was he got the coronation, which is basically like a neck breaker, on the floor. So they're clearly doing something with Lexis King where they're adding elements to his character. And this is what I meant before when I talked about they got Ethan Page to do something and they're building something with somebody else. Lexis King is that person. His character was a little bit more tongue-in-cheek before, trolling, overconfident. But now he's starting to lose it. He's starting to lose his grip on reality. He's pissed off. And this is a way of moving him up. All right. I know it doesn't look like that because he keeps losing to Dante Chen, but it's a traditional wrestling thing where, the cocky heel starts to become more and more serious as he realizes that his cockiness is costing him. And in this situation, this is exactly what's happening. Lexis King is a much better talent than Dante Chen. He is, a more valuable talent than Dante Chen, but he keeps losing because he's overconfident. So now he's going to be not so overconfident. He's going to be vicious and violent. And this could actually help him later on in building his character to a more main event level. So I can certainly see Lexis King being one of the top guys a little bit later. And they need him to be one because of the exodus of Dragunov and Carmelo Hayes and some of the other people. They're going to need him to step up because he's got more experience. And he's like in his early 30s or something like that. So he's a guy that they could be snatching out of NXT within the next year or so. So they need him to step up to fill that void that was left by Dragunov and Carmelo Hayes as a top level heel. With his experience and with his age, they definitely need him to step up. All right. Speaking of stepping up, Roxanne Perez, she's got a promo segment where she's going to explain how she's the only woman who has ever been the NXT Women's Champion who saw the NXT Women's title as the goal. Everybody else sees it as a stepping stone, but not her. She's been training since she was 9 years old or whatever, or training for the last 9 years to win the NXT Championship. It's the only title she's ever cared about. She never cared about being on Raw, never cared about being on SmackDown. She only wanted to be the NXT champion, and now she is, because she doesn't think that the NXT title represents the future. It represents present greatness. And she says that Ava making her find out who her opponent is by standing in the ring is disrespecting her and the title. So she demanded to know who her opponent was. Ava comes out, and she introduces the opponent, and it's Jordynne fucking Grace from TNA. The TNA Knockouts World Champion is going to wrestle the NXT Women's Champion at Battleground. The roof blew off the building. I stood up because I was like, holy shit. Okay. All right. So then Jordynne Grace got on the microphone, reintroduced herself, and says that Roxanne Perez has laid a foundation in NXT just like she laid one in TNA. And that she's to find out which one of them have the stronger foundation. And she's going to find out by wrestling her at Battleground. And she is going to walk away with 2 championships. And I was floored at this. I was like, holy hell. Clearly you're like, okay, they're just hot shotting shit. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're hot shotting because they threw so many of their own top girls in that ladder match and they beat all of them. And I talked about this last week, right? Like they beat so many girls in order to create this ladder match. None of them can be top contenders. And all the other girls who are any good are in the ladder match. So you had to have somebody else maybe come from Raw or SmackDown. And instead, they brought somebody in from TNA to make the moment even bigger. I fully support this. As a one-off, I fully support it. So Jordynne Grace versus Roxanne Perez. That's going to be money. Later, an unknown girl, I had no idea who this girl was talking about Jordynne Grace, said she didn't deserve it. What did she do to deserve to be number one contender for the NXT Championship? I'm thinking like, hey, this girl got a point. So it wasn't until the girl said her name was Stevie Turner that I was like, Stevie Turner from NXT UK? You mean Stevie Turner who was doing like an internet podcasting gimmick? She's been gone for like 8 months. Where has that girl been? In any event, Jordynne Grace, because everybody overhears conversations in NXT. She heard this and then said, well, everybody's going to get what they want. You want to see what my qualifications are? I'm going to show you next week, and you're going to get an opportunity, because that's what Stevie Turner wanted. She wanted an opportunity for herself. So Jordynne Grace will be wrestling Stevie Turner next week. Of course, she's going to win that match. Is she going to beat Roxanne Perez? Now, there's some discussion that she might, due to Julia's injury. They might want to prolong Jordynne Grace staying in NXT. I don't think that will happen. I think they're going to have a hell of a match. Roxanne's going to win, and Jordynne Grace is going to disappear for a while. But it's fucking clear to me that Jordynne Grace, at the end of her contract, is going to be on Raw or SmackDown. And this is basically her tryout. And TNA has to know this. They've got to know this is monkey branching 101, right? She's the TNA champion. It's great that they're going to get their title on television. That's fantastic. But this is monkey branching 101. The moment that contract with TNA is over, she's in WWE. She's full-time. And she's already going to be having ingratiated herself because she did some work in NXT. This is tremendous. She's still going to be continuing to work in TNA and do other stuff. She's going to be defending the TNA Knockouts title in Japan shortly after NXT. So I don't think she'll win, because then she'll have both belts in Japan. And I don't think that's going to happen. She's an absolute steal for WWE, though. And it's only a matter of time before she's on the main roster of WWE full-time. So LGBT Tatanka, he's back. He was talking about the sacred fire and communicating with his ancestors and how his body is healed, and, you know, fire is a portal to the spirit world and all this other kind of voodoo Native American stuff. I have no idea what was going on with that guy, but he's back. So everybody who can be excited about that, thumbs up, Eddie Thorpe. Welcome back. Next, Carly Bright. She has a vignette. She was a cheerleader for Minnesota who got into wrestling, and now she's going to bring those skills to NXT. I'm like, cheerleading is not a combat sport. Let's see how that works out for you. Natalya, she likes Carly because she likes everybody. She's just hanging around. She's the Chris Jericho of women's wrestling in NXT. Izzy Dame, who walked in like Andre the goddamn Giant. I mean, she's massive compared to the rest of these girls. She made some jokes about Carly, and she got confronted by Carmen Nix. I mean, not Carmen. Carmen Petrovich. That's her name. The girl with the sword. Natalya's mini-me. In any event, Izzy Dame and Carmen got into a fist fight. They started getting broken up. They're always fighting in the women's locker room in NXT. We then go over to the men's locker room with No Quarter Catch crew. Charlie Dempsey and his boys. They're working out. They're hitting the weights. Dempsey is upset about losing the cup, so he lost a piece of himself. It said that his group needs to be more like Tony D'Angelo's group. It needs some structure. It needs some discipline, a chain of command. And as he's thinking about this, Miles Bourne wants to fight Tony D'Angelo next week for the cup. Dempsey says, no. It's going to be Damon. And Damon's like, yeah, sure, I can handle that. I can do that. Later on, we see Tony D'Angelo. He's upset that the No Quarter continues to chase him for this cup. And he says, I thought it was cool at first, but now these guys really want this thing. He says he doesn't trust them when they say that Damon Kemp is going to be his opponent. So he wants Luca to work on figuring out that catch clause. And he's going to beat them at their own game. I was okay with this. It leads us to question what Tony D'Angelo has up his sleeve, which is always either putting somebody in a trunk or throwing somebody over a bridge, which rules. It kicks ass. I mean, he's a murderer. It's great. We had a vignette for Josh Briggs, who ran down his entire career. We even got to see the Evolve Championship in a vignette. I forgot they had that footage. But basically, he told his history about being signed in 2020 and the struggles. So he adopted a little brother and a little sister, and they had some success but then he had to go figure it out on his own. And he's not sure who Josh Briggs is, but he wants to find out. And I'm thinking, bro, you got to be in like your 30s at this point. How do you not know who Josh Briggs is at this point, brother? What's going on? What's happening? What's taking place here? And this was the gateway to the one thing on this show that threatened to bring me down. And that was Shawn Spears' appearance. Shawn Spears was watching the vignette and says that Josh Briggs is a lost soul in need of guidance. And so there's many in NXT who are lost souls in need of guidance. And he's going to help them to reach their maximum potential. And I said, I was thinking to myself, like, didn't Joe Gacy just try this and it failed utterly and completely? And Joe Gacy is better, much better than Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears is a book with no cover and 3 words on the first page and then 15 empty pages and then the end, period. He is that useful to human society. Shawn Spears sucks. Shawn Spears is garbage. Shawn Spears cannot reach a can of baked beans from the floor in your kitchen. He cannot teach you to reach anything. All right. He needs a step stool for that. This man sucks. All right. I know he's a coach. Oh, he has a wrestling school. Oh, this Shawn Spears, he got a wrestling school, Mongo. He's got a lot of experience. I don't care. You're telling the wrong party about that. I don't give a fuck about Shawn Spears. I want Shawn Spears bound like Hulk Hogan behind a motorcycle and dragged across Nevada. That's what I want. Get him out of here. Him, personally, I want his head on a stick. Shawn Spears sucks. Moving on. Wes Lee. I mentioned him earlier. He's cutting a promo. He doesn't want to do a triple threat match, but he wants to be the North American champion. Then he looks up at the belly button of Obafemi, who is a gigantic Nigerian man, and said the number of opponents is irrelevant. The outcome will remain the same. And I was like, yes. Oh, I hope Obafemi folds him like origami and just throws him like a paper plane, just throws him down the hallway. That would be great. I hope he turns into one of those footballs that kids used to play with when they used to do the fingers with the goalpost. Just thump. I hope just thump that son of a bitch. Get him out of here. Wes Lee sucks. By himself, no good. Put him back with the Rascals. That would be great. So that's NXT, man. It was an incredibly full show. A lot happened. A lot of surprises. Some really good stuff. A lot to look forward to. And you know what? They I don't think they're done. They still have to find some more players because of what they did to the roster. They have to find some more players. So bringing in Jordynne Grace as a ringer, fantastic. Got a huge pop. People are talking about it. Folks, of course, are like, oh my God, how could that be? Nobody talked about this before. The dirt sheets didn't hear nothing about this. So it can't possibly be, oh, she's standing in the middle of the ring. And now the conspiracy theories are out. I literally just saw a tweet that says that TNA is going to be a feeder system to NXT. There's no evidence of that. And if anything, it's the other way around. As, WWE keeps releasing guys that keep going to TNA, like Naomi and Nick Namath and Steve Macklin. And, there's so many people that WWE has released that just end up in TNA. So, people wanted WWE to work with other companies. And then they started having all these crazy conspiracies when the companies actually take them up on that offer, It's either it's like one of those, I'm not going to get too political, but like an integration and segregation thing. Either you want WWE to play in their own sandbox and not play with anybody else because you're worried they're going to corrupt TNA or they're going to corrupt New Japan or they're going to corrupt Noah, Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. They're going to corrupt all my favorite companies. I don't want them working with WWE. But if WWE doesn't want to work with anybody, then, why would they want to do that? I like companies to work together. It's like, make up your mind, dude. Internet wrestling, Mark. Make up your mind. Do you want WWE working with other companies or not? What do you want? Or do you just want to complain? Because I personally prefer WWE to play in their own sandbox and not concern themselves at all with these TNA guys, these Japan dudes. I don't care about none of them shits. I like for everybody to have their own space. All right? That's just me. I like that if I want Chinese food, I go to Chinese people. I like if I want to have, soul food, I hit up the hood, I like what people do best. Do what you do best. Stop trying to mix everything together. But I'm okay with a one-off. I'm okay with Jordynne Grace having a one-off match with Roxanne Perez. Do I want a full-on Forbidden Door TNA versus NXT show? Not really, no. Because I don't see anything that could be interesting that comes out of that. There's people who are saying, well, let AJ Styles wrestle in TNA now. I'm like, did you ask AJ Styles if he wanted to wrestle in TNA? Like, what is going on here? Why are we taking AJ Styles and dumping him in TNA all of a sudden? Just to wrestle Moose of all people? Ugh, come on. Who wants to put money down on that? But whatever. But the idea that I'm saying here is that it's okay if companies want to work together. They want to build some kind of partnership or relationship or whatever. I'm fine with that. It has to be mutually beneficial, which I think it is in the TNA NXT situation. It's mutually beneficial. NXT needed somebody to draw for this show, and Jordynne Grace can be a draw for this show. She's not a huge pay-per-view draw or anything like that, but there's going to be a certain level of intrigue that she comes from another company and is wrestling in WWE, because it almost never happens. So that's interesting. If it becomes more regular, it becomes less and less impactful. That's why I keep saying a one-off, not we're going to do a yearly NXT versus TNA show, because that would be stupid as fuck. All right? No, we don't need to do that. But we can have one-offs. You can bring in the X Division champion every once in a while, or the tag team champions or something like that too. That might be fun. But it doesn't need to be a regular thing where people are expecting it and people are looking forward to it, because then it diminishes it over time, in my opinion. So a lot of people are just tripping. They think that TNA is going to devalue itself and become a feeder system for NXT. I don't think so. I was kind of thinking about, like, why would they have their champion lose to the NXT champion? And that's kind of why I was like, maybe fucking Jordynne Grace wins. I don't think so, but maybe she does. Maybe it's an incentive to get her to jump ship now rather than waiting for her contract to expire. So I talked about Ethan Page coming over, still generic guy, but he has some talent. He has some value. NXT being a landed spot for him is great. Yes, it does. NXT has enough spots for people like him where they can come in and utilize what they already know and still learn more. So it's a good spot for some people like him. They need more guys like Ethan Page who have experience, but they don't really have much in the way of personality, and it can really help NXT. But NXT needs to dig into the crate and find young talent to build up. And I think that's what they're doing with Lexis King and Obafemi and all those guys too. So NXT's extremely strong show. Very fun. A lot of stuff to talk about coming out of it. They're building up a pay-per-view in 2 weeks, I think. And they're next week, I believe. If I'm correct. This pay-per-view is actually next weekend. And I'm hyped for it, bro. I'm all in. I don't even know who Trick Williams is wrestling yet. It might be Ethan Page. It might be Noam Dar. I'm not sure. But I'm all in on Battleground. And as I saw an account say, would double back to Jordynne Grace, there's going to be a TNA champion wrestling an NXT champion at a UFC venue. That's wrestling in 2024. It's crazy. All right. Like, share, subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session where you got an affection for no progression.